All right, let's dive in. Today we're going deep into a true crime case. The 1981 murder of Kim Barry in Australia.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a rough one.
Good.
We should definitely acknowledge the content warning given by Case File, which is the podcast we're going to be pulling from today.
It's one of those stories that really captures your attention, not just the mystery, but the human element, too, which is so sad.
Kim Barry was just 19 years old, from Wollongong, Australia. She had her whole life ahead of her. She wanted to be a nurse. She was really active in her community, and everyone said she was just a genuinely kind person.
Really tragic ending.
Yeah. So after a night out with a friend, Kim vanished. And then days later, they found her body.
Oh, my.
Yeah, and the crime scene. It really got the attention of the whole nation.
The brutality of it all, it really makes you think it wasn't random.
Right, like the killer was trying to send a message or something.
Or maybe hide something.
Right. So let's rewind back to Friday night, February 6th, 1981, and try to figure out what Kim did that night.
I love this part, finding all those little details that end up being important.
Okay, so Kim was spending the evening with her friend, Donna Holland. They went to see a movie, and then they went to Crown Gardens, which was a pretty popular nightclub back then.
Sounds like a pretty normal Friday night.
It does.
But Kim's parents were away at their holiday house, so Kim was taking care of her little brother.
Oh.
So maybe she didn't want to stay out too late.
Right. And then there are these two things that, looking back, seem so creepy.
Okay, let's hear it.
So first, Kim asks Donna to spend the night because she was scared of a prowler in the neighborhood.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Was she really scared? Or was it something else?
I don't know. We'll probably never know for sure.
Spooky.
And think about it. No cell phones back then.
Oh, yeah.
So being alone at night
Yeah.
must have been so much scarier.
Totally different time.
And the other creepy thing is this toast that Kim makes. She says, "May I soon get a steady boyfriend." And knowing what happens next, it just sounds so sad.
It's true. Life can change so fast.
It really can. So Donna ends up going home. And that's the last time anyone sees Kim.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And then 2 days later, they make this horrible discovery at Jamboree Lookout. It's this scenic place outside of Wollongong.
What happened?
So this guy, he was out looking for car parts, and he stumbled on a body.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was really bad.
Tell me.
It was a woman's body, naked, headless, and they had cut off her fingers.
Oh, my gosh.
I know.
That's awful.
It was really shocking.
Why would they cut off the head and fingers?
Makes you think it was premeditated, like they wanted to be in control.
Yeah, like a ritual or something.
Right. So how did they figure out it was Kim?
Good question.
Well, at first, they thought she might have been pregnant because of how bloated the body was.
Oh, I see.
But that turned out to be wrong.
So how did they figure it out?
It was a tiny detail.
Okay.
The Band-Aids on her heels.
Oh, yeah. Donna said her feet were sore from dancing.
It's amazing how these tiny things end up being so important.
I know. It shows how important it is to pay attention to everything.
Right. And it was actually Kim's mom, Beverly, who saw the clothes they found on the news and realized they were Kim's.
Oh, wow. That's so sad.
Can you imagine your daughter just disappears?
Yeah.
And then you find out she was murdered.
It's awful.
So the police have a victim, but no suspect.
Right.
And they know Kim was last seen at that nightclub. Maybe she left willingly with someone.
So they went back to the club.
Yeah. They were hoping someone saw her with someone that night. And that's when Graeme Potter's name comes up.
Okay. Who's that?
It turns out he and Kim actually knew each other.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it was a long time ago. They took dance classes together, and Kim had a crush on him back then.
Interesting.
And get this, Potter was supposed to get married just a week after Kim disappeared.
What? That complicates things.
Totally.
So what happened?
Well, the police started looking into him. And some people at the club said they saw Kim and Potter together that night.
Together?
Yeah.
What were they doing?
Talking, dancing, even holding hands. And remember that bottle of Liebfraumilch wine that Donna said Kim bought?
Yeah.
Well, Potter's brother was also at the club that night. And he said they had a bottle of that same wine at their table.
Interesting.
And the bartender said they only sold one bottle of that wine that night.
Oh, well.
So it wasn't just any wine. It was the exact same wine.
That's a pretty big coincidence.
It is.
So they definitely spent some time together that night.
And then things get crazier. The day after they identify Kim's body, Graeme Potter vanishes.
He ran.
Yep.
Why?
He left this weird note for his fiancée, saying his life was in danger.
Oh, wow.
And he told her not to do anything stupid.
Sounds suspicious.
So is he running because he's guilty? Or is he really in danger?
This is getting good.
It is.
And then he didn't just disappear.
No. The police found his car. And what they found inside made things even worse.
What was it?
A blood-stained shirt. And another note to his fiancée, saying how sorry he was for leaving her like this.
Yeah.
But that he had to go.
That's intense. But it still doesn't tell us why he ran. Or what happened to Kim.
You're right.
The police have so many questions.
They do.
But they do have a possible suspect now. Graham Potter.
Right.
And then there's another discovery at Jamboree Lookout.
What now?
This time it's Kim's skull.
Oh, no.
They needed to figure out how she died. And maybe find some clues about the killer.
What did they find?
The skull showed signs of blunt force trauma. Probably from something heavy like a wrench.
A wrench.
Yeah. And they also found more of Kim's remains nearby, wrapped in a dressing gown and bed sheets.
And those are Potter's.
Yep. His fiancée said they were his.
So even though he tried to clean up his apartment and make up that story about being in danger, the evidence is pointing right at it.
It's like a trail leading straight to him.
And this was before DNA testing.
Right.
But they could still analyze the blood.
Oh.
And the blood stains in Potter's apartment matched Kim's.
Oh, wow.
So he's the last one seen with her. His story's weak. And now there's physical evidence.
Sounds like he's in trouble. So what happened?
After weeks on the run, they finally caught him.
Finally.
So now the big question is, what's his story?
Did he confess?
Well, he didn't deny being there, but he came up with this complicated story, blaming two other guys who he said were dealing drugs with Kim.
Wait, so he's saying he saw the murder, but he didn't do it.
Exactly.
And why did he run then?
Well, he said these two guys broke into his apartment and they got into a fight with Kim.
Okay.
And then they killed her while he was hiding upstairs.
Hiding upstairs.
Yeah.
And what about getting rid of the body?
He said they made him help them. They threatened to hurt him and his fiancée if he didn't.
That's convenient.
Does sound a little fishy.
Especially since he already ran from the cops once.
Exactly.
Sounds like he's trying to blame someone else.
That's what the prosecution said at the trial. They went through his story and pointed out all the problems with it and how there was no evidence to back it up.
Like what?
Well, if these two guys were such big drug dealers, wouldn't the police know about them? But nobody at the club remembered seeing these guys. And there was no sign that Kim was involved with drugs.
So that part of his story falls apart.
And the physical evidence didn't match his story either.
What do you mean?
The bloodstains in his apartment, they didn't match what he said happened.
Oh, I see.
And then there's the whole thing about cutting off her head and fingers. Potter said those guys used a meat saw.
A meat saw.
Yeah.
That's scary.
But the forensics people said it looked like they used different tools.
So he's lying.
It looks that way.
So even if there were other people there, his story still doesn't add up.
Exactly.
So what happened?
The jury didn't believe him. After a month-long trial, they found him guilty of murdering Kim Berry.
Wow.
Guilty of murder.
What was the sentence?
Life in prison.
Wow.
His family and friends were shocked.
They thought he was innocent.
They did. But there was so much evidence against him.
What about his fiancée?
Cherie Jones. She actually believed him.
Really?
Yeah, she even married him in prison.
She must have really loved him.
She did.
So that's it then. Case closed.
Well, not quite. Years later, something new came up. That changed everything.
Really? What happened?
A taxi driver came forward. He said he drove Potter and Kim to Potter's apartment that night.
Nobody mentioned a taxi driver before.
Right.
So this is brand new information.
It is.
And what did he say?
This is the big part. He said he saw another person in the taxi with him.
Another person.
Yeah.
This is huge.
It is.
Because now it sounds like Potter might have been telling the truth.
Right. About those two other guys.
This changes everything.
And it makes you think, if Potter was lying about everything else, why would he mention this detail? A detail that could actually help him.
Right. It's like he's telling the truth, but only part of it.
So maybe there's more to this story than we thought.
Maybe.
And that's where John Suda-Linton comes in. He's a journalist who investigated this case, and his book, The Stranger You Know, has some amazing insights.
Okay. So what did he find out about the taxi driver?
Well, he actually met with Potter in prison. And he noticed some interesting things about him.
Like what?
He said Potter was really interested in violence and criminals.
That's weird, since he claims to be a victim himself. It's like he has this dark side.
And Suda-Linton also said that Potter was angry at the taxi driver for coming forward.
Wait, Angry. Why would he be angry? The taxi driver's story helps him.
That's the big question.
It's almost like he's upset that this detail came out.
Right.
Like it messed up his whole story.
So now we have a convicted murderer whose story is suddenly looking more believable because of this new witness.
This is crazy.
And we have this journalist who says Potter might be hiding something.
So what now?
Well, this third person in the taxi. It changes everything. We have to rethink everything we thought we knew.
So is Potter a liar? Or was he really a victim?
I don't know.
And if there were other men involved, what were they doing? Why would they kill Kim?
Those are the questions that haunt this case.
Yeah.
And to make things even more complicated, there's another twist.
Oh no, another one.
Remember how Potter was sentenced to life in prison?
Yeah.
Well, he actually got out.
He got out.
Yep, they reduced his sentence, and he got parole.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
It is.
So what did he do when he got out? Did he try to start over?
Well, things took a dark turn.
What do you mean?
He went right back to a life of crime.
Oh no. What did he do?
He got involved in drug trafficking.
Drug trafficking.
And there were even accusations that he was hired to kill someone for the mob.
The mob.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane.
So did he become the kind of criminal he said he was a victim of?
Or did prison make him this way?
It's hard to say.
This case is like something out of a movie.
It really is.
Like he was living a double life.
Right. So this is where things get even more complicated.
Okay, lay it on me.
So Potter's actions, after he got out of prison, they kind of make you rethink the whole case.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's like, on the one hand, you could say, see, he was always a bad guy.
Yeah.
Like he was capable of violence and lying all along.
Makes sense.
But then on the other hand,
Yeah.
you have to think about what prison did to him.
Right.
Maybe all those years locked up changed him.
Maybe.
Maybe they pushed him towards this life of crime
Yeah.
that he wouldn't have chosen otherwise.
It's a tough question.
It is.
And it adds another layer to this already complex case.
Right. So at the end of the day,
Hmm.
we're left with this really unsettling feeling.
Yeah.
Like we still don't know the whole truth.
It's like a puzzle with some pieces missing.
Exactly. We have all these facts
Yeah.
and conflicting stories and lingering questions.
It's frustrating.
It is.
But that's what makes this case so fascinating.
I guess so. It's a reminder that sometimes, even with all the evidence in the world, we might never really know what happened.
And that's the truth.
So where does that leave us?
Well, I think it's up to each of us to decide what we believe happened to Kim Berry. Do you think Graeme Potter was a victim, forced into this horrible situation?
Or was he a master manipulator who tricked everyone into believing his lies?
What do you think?
Honestly, I go back and forth. Some days I think one thing, and other days I think something completely different.
I know. It's really hard to say for sure.
It is.
But that's the point of our deep dives.
Yeah.
We're not here to give you the answers. We're here to present the information and let you make up your own mind.
We've given you the facts, the different sides of the story, and the questions that still need answers.
Now it's your turn to think about it and come to your own conclusions.
And if you're really intrigued by this case, we highly recommend checking out the full case file episode and John Suda Litton's book, The Stranger You Know.
There's so much more to uncover, details we didn't have time to get into today.
This case really is a deep rabbit hole, full of twists and turns.
It's a story that stays with you.
It really does. And it makes you think about the nature of truth and how hard it can be to find,
Especially in a case like this.
where nothing is as it seems.
Exactly.
So here we are at the end of our deep dive into the Kim Berry case. And I gotta say, my head is spinning. We've gone through so much, so many twists and turns. And I still have so many questions.
I know what you mean.
What are your big takeaways from this?
Well, I think this case really shows us how complicated the truth can be, especially when you're talking about the legal system.
Right.
We saw how new evidence can completely change everything. And even when a case seems really strong, there can still be doubts.
It makes you wonder if we can ever really be sure about anything.
Exactly.
And what about Kim's family? I mean, we've talked about the crime itself
Mm-hmm.
and the investigation, but what happened to them after all this?
John Suda Linton talks about that in his book. It's really sad. Her parents had to deal with losing their daughter in such a horrible way.
I can't even imagine.
And they had to go through all of that with the whole world watching.
It's heartbreaking.
And Kim's younger brother, Wayne, he was just a teenager. He lost his sister. And he had to deal with all of this trauma while the media was constantly in their faces.
It's a good reminder that behind every true crime case, are real people whose lives are changed forever. And I think this case also makes us think about our justice system. Like,
Yeah.
can we really trust it? Can we ever be totally certain that someone is guilty or innocent?
It's a good question.
The taxi driver's story, the things John Suda-Linton found out, and even Potter's own life after prison. It all creates this feeling of uncertainty.
So it's like we're never going to get a clear answer.
Right.
And that's what makes this case so captivating.
So, after everything we've learned,
Yeah.
what do you think happened to Kim Berry? Was Graeme Potter telling the truth about those other men?
Or was he a really good liar?
Did he fool everyone?
It's hard to say.
What do you think?
Honestly, I don't have a definite answer. And I think that's okay.
You do?
I do. This deep dive wasn't about finding one single truth.
Right.
It was about exploring all the different possibilities, looking at the evidence, and letting you decide what you believe.
We've given you the facts, the different sides of the story, and
Yeah.
now it's up to you to decide what makes sense to you. And if you want to learn more, we definitely recommend listening to the Case File episode and reading John Suda-Linton's book, The Stranger. You know,
There's so much more to this story than we could cover here.
this case is a real mystery.
It is.
It makes you think
Wow.
and question everything you thought you knew.
And that's what makes it so interesting.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was a wild ride.
Until next time.